Welcome to Success Authorities Conversation Street with Leadership Authority Peter Beaumont and with Business Culture Authority Ronn Lehmann and me, Linda Ruhland, Success Authorities founder.
And the challenge that is always there for everybody is the unknowns. It's the thing, you know what you know what you don't know, and you don't know what you don't know. Where everybody is getting into trouble is the category they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
That's why I love doing podcasts like this. Entrepreneurs and business owners, CEOs, executives, anybody in life, they need to find ways to expose themselves to seeing other things and understanding. So at least they can put it in the category of knowing what they don't know, because then they can start to pull together some resources. But the challenges for all these executives is when something comes up where they don't know what they don't know, and something comes out of left field. That's what's jarring. That's what, can put a company on the financial, on the brink of financial insolvency. I mean, these are the things that are the biggest challenges. The day-to-day challenges, I don't think ever change, right? Like all of you have your experience in marketing and HR and communications and conversations. Like there's always the bread and butter type of challenges that come up, like dialing in culture and so on and so forth. But the biggies, that really throw people for a loop are the things that they don't know and come out of left field.
Okay, that's a good. No, I can see that. In fact, it's funny you should say that. One of the things that COVID started it, to be fair.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm doing much more with clients than I used to, certainly not, it was hardly ever done before COVID, is scenario planning, which is in the event of, what are you going to do? What's the worst scenario? Because it's funny, when people your unknown thing, when people actually have faced the worst scenario, it's like I always say it's like going to the doctor, right? You walk in the door, and in the old days when you used to go to a GP, now you go into specialists, right? You miss out the middleman. But you used to go into somebody and say, I've got these symptoms. And you say, well, this is what's wrong with you, I think. Yeah, a couple of tests. Take these, if it's still a problem, come back and see me in 3 weeks. You go out the door and you feel so much better, and nothing has changed, right? Nothing physically has changed. It's all up here, because now you know what you're dealing with and you've got some kind of road to recovery. It's the same with scenario planning, right? Because you've faced the worst and you now know what plan you have to do something about it. And so I think I'm just linking what you said. I think scenario planning helps those unknowns. You can never, ever, right?
Right. But that's the same thing I call it, doing like the pre-mortems and stuff like that. And I love doing that, do it for my own business all the time. But it's like, okay, what if something out of left field just comes up? Like, what are the steps you do to hunker down, and how can you see things through?
Right. I've not heard that pre-mortem. I like that. I may well steal that shamelessly.
Post-mortem, once it's dead, to talk about when something died isn't helpful, but you got to do the pre-mortem.
I like the pre-mortem a lot.
Yeah.
Patrick, when you were talking about one of the values for entrepreneurs and founders and actually leaders and humans is the idea that the opportunity to get with other people because they may have perspectives
Bingo.
On your situation or on my situation that I can't see.
Yeah,
it's difficult the reason it comes out of left field for me is because I can't see left field from where I am, but somebody else is already standing in left field and they can talk about it. One of the things I always find interesting about history is whatever happens or comes out of left field, somebody knew.
Yeah.
Somebody knew, and that message didn't get disseminated or communicated or wasn't believed. So there's a lot of random events, but a lot of them aren't quite as random as we think, if that makes sense. And so groups, just hearing from different perspectives and being willing to challenge what you absolutely know is true about your business, and then have other people sort of challenge that is really valuable. Because I think one of the biggest problems with both vision and scenario planning is we can't think far enough.
Sure.
We can't push it because we're locked into our area. And that's where others, networking groups or SEGC. You just get a chance to have other people weigh in.
Exactly. That's why I love, it's why in the book there's a whole chapter on community. It's why it's so important for people to surround themselves with others. And whether it's in Rotary or a networking group or EO Vistage, hopefully some combination of those things. But
Yeah. Yeah.
that's what's helpful, because when you see other people on their journey and something happens to them out of left field, then it kind of opens up your eyes to other things. And that's
Yeah.
that experiential learning is just there's nothing better than that, especially for entrepreneurs.
Well, I think that's why mastermind groups have grown so quickly, right?
Yep.
Same reason. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Patrick, in the area that you are investing, I've got to believe that that's, well, first and foremost, I'm fascinated by the fact that you've chosen that as your niche. But knowing so many businesses over the years, nobody's coming from the same playbook, right? We're all finding ourselves in business and becoming successful for a variety of different ways. And over the years, I've seen some companies do really well with new funds, new capital, and I've seen cases where additional capital actually is damaging to them. So I'm wondering, how do you make the choice? What are you looking for in a business that you define as being a good candidate for rational growth?
Yeah, and when you were saying new capital is dangerous to them, are you talking about as a fund or as a company? Like as a company
Well, if
that's
they get too much capital too soon, or if they, let's just say, have had this desire to invest in something that would they believe would help them grow, or if they get money too soon and they don't allocate it correctly or thoughtfully, those are the areas that I've seen people just burn through it. And so at the end of the day,
yeah.
they're in a worse case than they were before.
Well, and actually, when I asked that clarifying question, I just realized like my answer is the same here, regardless if it's an investment fund or a company receiving the money, because it happens to a lot of investment funds where all of a sudden, they've got, so many dollars, and then all of a sudden they raise the next fund and it's, 10 times bigger than what they've done in the past. And that leads to a lot of times, they have to go into markets that they don't understand. They have to do things at a much faster clip than they're used to, and it's disastrous. And the same thing is true with companies, where we've seen it a number of times. And venture capital is actually a little bit famous for this, because a lot of the venture funds have so much money that they may see a nice opportunity, but they only need 10 million, and the venture fund's minimum check might be $20 million. And so they talk these companies into raising a $50 million round and, scaling their business plan all that much more. And it is a huge problem, and it's been disastrous. I think from like an economic development standpoint, if one wanted to kind of like nerd out on, the impact to our SMB community, throughout the United States, it's I think had a massive negative toll. And everybody thinks that more money is actually helping, but more money actually does as much damage as it does good, because I have seen a number of companies that have brought in substantial amount of money, and they get it to 1 million in revenue and 5 million in revenue and even 10 million in revenue, but it never became a business that needed to be 100 million in revenue or $1 billion in revenue. So for the VCs and the private equity groups, it was a complete failure, and then they just shut it down.
Kind of like
Because
building a
they
paper house
need to
or a
take
house
that,
of cards.
yeah, because they need to take that loss as a fund. They can't just, because for them it's a zombie, and they need to just go take that loss. But there's a lot of companies that are shut down that are nice, sustainable economic businesses, but were a failure from the original business plan. And so it's too bad. That's why I'm a big fan of bootstrapping. I'm a big fan of companies taking the time to really understand, like, what do they need to have that rational growth plan, and then properly capitalizing it. So
You've partially answered while you were addressing that question from Linda, I made me think of another question, and you just at the end there, you partially answered it, but it's what's a good fit for you as a company? What do you normally look for? That's
yeah, it's a great question. So we're looking for founder led. We're
right.
looking for companies that are are tech enabled, and it's not like they have to be technology companies, but they have to be utilizing processes and technologies that will allow them to scale. And that's more about, the mindset of being able to leverage tools, so that they can keep up with everything. They definitely need to have a growth mindset.
Yeah.
They have to have that vision, or they have to be going somewhere. So that growth mindset. And then that, and for us, it's all about that kind of, that business expansion, in kind of a rational plan behind it. So those are a couple of the big criteria for us. We do state things within the context of revenue because people can easily understand that. But at the end of the day, all the revenue is doing is kind of proving that there's an existing product or service that is being purchased in the marketplace, and that's what we care about.
Yeah. So there's some stability and there's a platform, right? Yeah.
Exactly, because we're just not set up for that concept phase. That's what accelerators and all these other things are for.
Right. No, that's really okay. That's really interesting. So just it makes me think then, do you find companies like that in 1 million cups? Because I was under the impression they tended to be much more startups.
No, I mean, we've sourced deals via 1 million cups because, I can't think of like a presenter that is something we've actually taken a look at, but definitely like the people who attend. Uh, that
Okay.
attend might, have a referral or a business themselves, but the speakers themselves would be early. But that's why 1 million cups is important to us because, you know, we meet a ton of companies. We get a ton of applications. We're getting 5 to 10 a week, and I'm going to invest in maybe 4 or 5 deals over the course of a year. So
Right.
I want to
Right.
be able to point people to 1 million cups. That's why I do those things and other things too. We're members of Gopher Angels and so forth. And so we want to be able to help them say, here's a place where you can go that's a better fit or whatever the case may be. So
Okay. All right.
Patrick, could you
Got it.
take a moment just to explain 1 million cups for
yeah.
those listening and me who doesn't know what that is?
Yeah, one million cups was started by the Kauffman Foundation. Do you guys know the Kauffman Foundation?
No.
Kauffman Foundation is the largest foundation in the United States dedicated to supporting entrepreneurs. Started by Ewing Kauffman out of Kansas City, a very successful pharma entrepreneur. And so he and his wife left everything the vast majority of what they had to their foundation to support entrepreneurship. And so now many years ago, maybe 15 years ago or so, the foundation, somebody was at the foundation and said, we're all here to support entrepreneurs and we're not entrepreneurs by definition. So maybe we should invite some entrepreneurs into the foundation and have a cup of coffee and learn what they're up to. And so they started doing that every Wednesday morning at 9 a.m., just kind of had an open house. And they created a program out of it called 1 Million Cups. And they supported the build out of a couple hundred 1 million cup chapters throughout the United States. And so I was very early on the St. Paul chapter. That was a very early chapter. So was Chris Polster. And so when I quit going downtown St. Paul, I called the Kauffman Foundation, and that's how I started 1 Million Cups Eden Prairie. So there's today, I think, 150 or so. I've heard that a couple have shut down, but 150 1 million cup groups throughout the United States. And everybody kind of has the same theme where, everything's free. There is no membership costs or anything like that. It's put out coffee, have someone let us use some space, and we have one or two entrepreneurs share their story. So it's a very much a volunteer community driven platform to allow people to connect. But it's all about entrepreneurs being able to share their story and then to get feedback from the community. What can we do for you? So that's the core of 1 Million Cups. People want to think about that it's something different or make it different than what it is, but it is truly that simple. It's not a membership group. It's literally a bunch of community members getting together and chatting with each other.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
So I wanted to bring it back to investment again, Patrick, which is the core of what you do. Are you seeing given what we've been through since 2008, rumor mongering around another recession, which appears to have gone away at least until 2028. What are you seeing as trends for investment generally? Where's you guys heads at the moment on that over the next few years, maybe?
We are not trend-driven investors.
Okay.
Many, and I would even say most are. So I understand kind of where your question comes from, is people will try to have a view on what's happening and where things are going. And of
Uh,
course, everything today is being driven by large data models, large language models in particular. And
mhm.
so there's a lot of thought and discussion around that. We're more like the Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger of small businesses. We are very much about like, what is the business doing? Is it a viable business in 10 years from now, irregardless of what happens? And so that's the stuff we're looking for. And again, it's all these things come in cycles, but for us, it's all about the people.
Mhm.
We don't have any discussions at our weekly partner meetings or at our investment committee meetings about what are the economic trends and, hey, can we catch this hot thing or stay away from this thing and so forth. It's more about the people and executing a solid business plan. So unfortunately, Peter, I don't have some economic trend
No,
that I,
no, that's also that's as insightful as if you had answered
yeah, yeah,
another way the question actually, because it gives us more insight into how you operate with
yeah.
with the people that you work with, and I think it's a novel. It just goes back to what we were saying earlier about the relationships and the people are more important than actually being smart about telling you what this all this data could tell you, right? So yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. What's the real issues that affect them on a day? And again, that just came through so transparently in the way that people approached and talked to you. They weren't people you'd loaned money to. It was much more than that. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yep. Exactly.
um, so I've got another question, which is part of that almost, but it's not investment. It's this one's much more about. Do you actually offer advice to CEOs about, if they're struggling? Do you say, I know you don't take the consulting role, I get that, but is there anything that you say, listen, here's what we think you should be looking at, here's who we think you should be talking to? Do you encourage them to go into Vistage? Do you suggest they become part of EO? Just generally, what sort of advice do you provide them outside of the norm?
Yes. We are definitely sharing our experiences, is how I
Mm,
would put that. And a large part of our experiences, what you just touched upon, is, our experiences when people are members of Vistage and EO and, lean into these other groups, it's very beneficial. And as we say at the summit, like the answer oftentimes is in the room. Matter of fact, I could say it's always in the room. It's just a matter of,
right.
triangulating on it. And so we don't get advicey the way that one would think about investors. I think the majority of investors will like they're going to take board seats and they're going to have an opinion about
Yeah,
like
right.
who to
Right.
hire and to fire. We do none of that, and we have no interest in that. Because I have some pretty strong opinions on those types of things. We are tempted at times, like I think every human being is tempted to be like, I know best, and I want to be like, what
So
the heck are
true.
you doing over here, and why aren't you doing this?
Right.
But the reality is that, and that's why I love EO, and I think Vistage is the same in this thread, but it's more about sharing experiences and respecting that CEO, that business owner's journey, because we had talked, ad nauseum on a topic, but we still don't know all the context to what challenge they're really facing is, because there's always something underlying,
Yeah.
The vast majority of the iceberg is under the water, and the juiciest stuff is at the very bottom. And one's never going to really get there. Like, what is the thing that they're trying to solve for? And so that's where we will just point out things. And a lot of times our biggest solution set is encouraging them and introducing them other people to talk to. So again, I think we've kind of dialed in this idea that when they are out there talking to other people, that hopefully they'll kind of uncover some unknowns along their journey, and that will help them to the best decision versus us coming in and saying, hire this person, fire this person, spend money marketing here, don't spend money marketing here, hire this consultant, don't hire that consultant.
Right.
We do none of that, and we'll never do that. This is not my DNA.
So that intrigues me, and I get it. I totally get it. Apart from the summit, do you ever get these guys together?
We do. So we have a monthly roundtable that's optional.
There you go. Okay. All right.
Yeah, that is optional. And so it's just like this. It's 1 hour where, whoever jumps on, we'll talk through things. We have, a Slack channel that they can utilize and so on and so forth. But what I've also always known and can confirm in spades is that these people are extremely, extremely busy, and they don't have, the time to do as much of it as they probably want to do, should do, and so forth. And they're stretched really thin because they're definitely wearing the operator hat way more than they are the owner hat. And that's just kind of where they are in their business, and that's completely fine. But time is their most valuable asset. And so that's why we do what we do. We do events, we do things to get them together, invite them to get together, have conversations wherever possible. But we don't force anything upon people.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Conversation Street. For more information or to schedule a private conversation with Success Authorities, email us at inquire@successauthorities.com.